Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. This conference was born out of my frustration, and I'm hoping to leave here with some inspiration. I've got a pretty cool job. I get to work on issues that are important to me, and I get to make change that I think is meaningful. Most of the time, I feel very effective. When it comes to addressing the issues of farm workers, though, I am overwhelmed by what is before me. I can feel the weight of people counting on me, and I feel the constraints of our industrial food system. My company buys about $75 million worth of produce a year, and even I don't have access to farm-level information. I'm angry that because of America's anonymous commodity supply chain, unless I buy directly from a small farmer, which we do as much as possible, I can't tell you where the food we serve is grown, much less who picked it. I've tried to learn about our food system by visiting farms of all sizes. In April of 2009, I met with one of the largest tomato growers in Immokalee, Florida. And instead of feeling confident, which I usually do at work, I must confess, I was terrified. I stood in the hot sun, sweat dripping down my back, and I began to panic as I looked around and couldn't find any shade. I thought, I'm going to faint. I'm going to pass out just standing here. And I had visions of myself running across the field and stealing some of the water off the truck that was meant for the workers. And I thought, well, that would be inappropriate, to say the least. I was also terrified of the responsibility that had sent me there, to try to do something about the plight of these workers who I had learned are routinely exploited and sometimes enslaved. I had seen worker housing that was 10 men to a room, and I had heard stories of physical abuse, and I could see how hard people were working in the fields, and I thought, what in the world am I going to do or say that's going to make a real difference for these people? I tried to ask tough questions of the farm manager, but I could tell I wasn't getting the whole story. He was saying things like, people can make up to $18 an hour. And behind him, I saw workers feverishly picking tomatoes, running to trucks, hoisting buckets, and starting all over again, each 32-pound bucket earning them 45 cents. I could also hear the crew bosses directing the workers in Spanish, as the farm manager told me he only spoke English. Did even he know what was really going on? I was at a loss. If I, as vice president of a $600 million corporation, felt that scared and impotent, I could only imagine how vulnerable the workers felt. I left Florida, proud of the code of conduct that we developed with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, and knowing that I had more work ahead of me. Since that day, I've continued to work with CIW, joined forces with United Farm Workers and Oxfam, and I've learned a lot. Yet even now, when my boss says to me, I only want to buy from farms that treat their farm workers right, I have to tell him, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to ensure that even the most basic legal requirements, access to water, shade, and bathrooms, are being followed. How to make sure that the people who pick our food can afford to eat decently. I don't know how to keep the children of farm workers in school and out of the fields. What I do know is that a food system that is cheap but built on the backs of the poor is not moral and is not sustainable. That we can't outsource our food production to countries with even fewer labor and environmental laws than the United States and think there will be no consequences. I know that no one, regardless of their immigration status, should be threatened with physical violence at work, and no woman should have to trade sex for employment. I know we can do better, but how? I stand here today looking for guidance. We've organized today into 3 acts. First, we're going to meet farm workers, firsthand and through history, art, film, and medicine. Next, we're going to connect the farm worker movement to other social justice movements. And lastly, the buck stops here, money. How do we use dollars to make change, both as business people and consumers? Many of our presenters today are speaking publicly for the first time, and I know you'll join me in supporting them. We also have several farm workers in the audience, and I thank them for coming. We wish we had more, but if it were easy for farm workers to take a day off of work, we wouldn't have such a need for this conference. All of today's talks will be available on YouTube soon, and I hope you'll share them widely. The conversation that happens here, in this hall, and at the viewing parties around the country is critical. Never before have so many advocates, workers, and business people come together to spend an entire day talking about farm work. Together, we can plant the seeds that will harvest change. Thank you.